No one asked for this bullshit. No one was asking for this. So, today in Idiocy, we have DC Comics, Warner Brothers Pictures, and really the whole of the entertainment industry in many ways. So let's get into this. It's kind of painful, but hey, what else is new in today's woke world? So today, DC Comics announced that they were going to take fan favorite and iconic character Robin and turn them into a gay character, specifically bisexual. Now, there's a lot to get into with this. I've got some notes on my desktop here, so if my eyes look weird looking over to the sides, that we get all the information into you so that you understand exactly why this is a problem and is emblematic of what we keep seeing happen in this industry: comic books, film, television, particularly when it comes to any character that happens to be white, straight, and otherwise a normal American. So, of course, if you're not, everyone's familiar with Batman and Robin. The character of Robin has had a number of iterations over the years. We've had the original Dick Grayson, then we had, the person that really became the Red Hood. Sorry, getting tongue-tied because I never liked this particular character as Robin, so I don't remember his name a lot. Jason Todd, Tim Drake. Then, of course, we had Batman's son. Then we've had a couple of females hop in and out depending on which issue you're looking at that have played the Robin character as well. The four primary people, when people really think about Robin, of course, is Dick Grayson, Jason Todd, Timothy Drake, and of course Damian Wayne, which is Batman's son. What happened is this. Well, in fact, let's back up for a second. Let's back up because this is comic books. It's phony. It's fake. Who cares, right? If you're not overly familiar with what's going on here, let me just kind of give you some background here. I want to make sure I get everything in this, okay? The sidekick partner of Batman, again, has had several people filling the role, okay? And one of the best storylines in comics in general, and particularly as it pertains to DC Comics, is the death in a family storyline. And this is when the Joker kills Robin. Now, the character that was playing Robin at that time was Jason Todd. And that essentially kind of broke Batman, hurt him emotionally, yada, yada, yada. About a year later, they introduced a character by the name of Timothy Drake, and that was about 1989. And then in 1990, that character, Timothy Drake, officially became Robin. That's over 30 years ago. I want you to keep that in mind. This is not some character that was made in the 2000s, like, say, Shuri of Black Panther fame. This character has been around for 30 years. There are people who started reading that Batman and Robin comic again who are now adults. And when he was introduced as this particular iteration of Robin, he took off. He became a fan favorite really fast. Now, I'm not sure if it was because of the cool new costume that they gave him or whatever the case may be, but he has been a staple within the DC Comics ever since, and is one of the more favorite members of the so-called Batman family. So this is the character that they've decided that they're going to, I don't even know, gender bend, sexuality bend, whatever the case may be. He's going to be, bisexual, which is essentially gay. I don't care what the designations are. If you are dating, trying to kiss, trying to sleep with men, you are gay. In any case, why does this matter? And it matters because as we go through some of this information, you'll begin to get a feel for how this is affecting the comic books industry. Not so much this specific example, but this is just the latest example of idiocy within the creative community. So why does this matter? Let's really get into that. Okay, so understand something. Comic books are like movies. The underlying economics of the business is dependent on demand, created by the love of readers for the characters and the stories. Now, good characters and good stories lead to success, which leads to sales, which lead to corporate profits. DC does this for money, just like any other entertainment corporation. Kind of give you a corollary. Back in the late 70s to early 80s, the X-Men of Marvel fame, they were a third tier group, characters. I mean, they didn't sell well. There wasn't a whole lot of interest in them. Once the original creator of the X-Men kind of stepped away from Marvel, they didn't really know what to do with it until Chris Claremont came in and provided newer characters, great storylines, and was on that book for like the next 17 years. In fact, if you look at the industry today, you will not find a single creator that has a run on a specific group, comic book or group of characters like Chris Claremont did with the X-Men. Okay? Now, if you begin to mess with characters that are iconic, fan favorites, or have been around for a long time in ways that do not make sense for the character or with the stories that they should be associated with, that's not good. You hurt your sales because fans like myself turn away. And I want to differentiate something here quickly, because at some point in this discussion, we're going to talk about the so-called four-quadrant marketing and how that's beginning to expand out beyond just those particular four quadrants that most people talk about. And a lot of it has to do with diversity and the push for it. And the problem is that's not what makes sales occur. And we're going to go over exactly how that is and why that is. But there is a push in the entertainment industry, as you already know, to get woke at all levels. Comic books, MAGA, video games, television, streaming, and movies. Okay? Social justice, progressive politics, and social ideas are infecting the industry, and it's poisoning the IPs. I mean, it just is. Okay? There's an old adage in script writing and screenwriting that goes something like this. If you want to send a message, go to the post office. And the lesson in that is when you're writing a screenplay, the focus needs to be the story and the characters. The same is true for television, movies, and comic books. Story is everything. Character is everything. People don't fall in love with the title. They fall in love with the character. The reason, for example, that the Falcon will never actually ever be Captain America is because Captain America is a white dude from World War II. He's Steve Rogers. And so the character of the Falcon, who frankly was like my fourth or fifth favorite character as a kid, is just playing dress up. He's wearing a costume with American colors and he's carrying around Steve Rogers' shield, playing Captain America, but he's not Captain America. And the reason for that doesn't have anything to do with conservatism or hatred of blacks or not liking diversity. It's because Steve Rogers is Captain America. Bruce Wayne is Batman. These are who the characters are, and this matters, okay? So, what you want to do is focus in on your characters. If they love the character, they'll buy the book, okay? Now, the issue here, I want to be clear, it's not to avoid political messages or things that are happening out in the real world, right? Obviously, there are people who consider themselves gay in the world. There are people who are gay in the country. So having a gay character in the comic books is not something that should be off limits. No one's ever really said that, okay? What we have said is, don't make that the focus of what it is you're trying to do. Again, the issue is not trying to avoid public or political views in storytelling, but that when the message a writer or a company wants to send is the number one priority, when that becomes the focus of the story rather than the story itself or the characters, then you end up with bad stories. You end up with characters that people don't want to read about, spend time with, or see on the big screen. Right now, entertainment companies are being lazy. Making Tim Drake gay, bisexual, whatever you want to call it, is lazy. And I'll tell you why, okay? These companies want to be woke or inclusive and have turned to race-swapping characters, injecting gay or transgender storylines for characters that are already established. Listen, I'm an African American, obviously. Most characters in comic books growing up were not black. We had Black Panther, we had the Falcon, we had Luke Cage. Later on, we had, on the DC side, Jon Stewart, Black Lightning. But, most of the characters created were white. Now we are in a much more mentally diverse universe of the world. There's this idea of representation. People who look like me want to see people in comics or on television or in the movies that look like me. But that concept, which is logical because that's the world we live in, gets turned on its head. And it gets turned into, if we don't place a prominent character on the screen or in the comic books as black, for instance, or as female, then people won't tune in to that show, that comic book, or that movie. And that's getting representation incorrect. What we want to see are black characters. The Falcon, Luke Cage, Black Panther, Jon Stewart. We do not want to see a white character that we grew up with turn black or female. That's not representation. That's laziness, because what you're saying as a creator, as a producer, as a director, you're saying you don't have faith in your writers or in your ability to create, or rather not create, to either create an original character that people will love, or to pick out a black character, a female character that's in the characters of DC Comics or Marvel, and make it popular to the masses. You're saying you don't have the creative ability to do that. And further, you're saying to us that we won't come see those characters. So you're just going to take a character like Superman and make him black. You're going to make Tim Drake black on the Titans, or gay in the comic books. You're going to take Barbara Gordon, white woman, red hair, and make her black in the movies. That is laziness. Hollywood is supposed to be the greatest collection within a industry of creative minds in the whole world. You're telling me you can't figure out a way to include a black character that's been black for decades in your property? You're saying that you want to show that there are gay people in the superhero fantasy world, that you can't come up with an interesting gay character? I mean, after all, we only have black woman, Batwoman, who was created umpteen years ago, is gay. Now, when she was created, it's not as if we needed another family family member of the Bat families. We had a bunch already, but they decided to do it. And actually, the first few years, it was a pretty decent comic book, primarily because while she was a gay character, they did not have gay storylines in the comic book, which was appropriate because it's a comic book. The hero is supposed to be out punching and beating up bad guys and villains, not ruminating all the time on their sexuality. Okay? At this point, Robin, in the iteration of Tim Drake, is 30 years old. The character is established. And that established character is a white, straight male. He's not bisexual, he's not gay, and he's not black. Which brings me to the ridiculousness of Warner Brothers and their idiocy. I mean, I'm about to act like Stephen A. Smith and start screaming up in this place because this doesn't make any sense. So this is what we have. Tim Drake is now going to be bisexual in the movies. In the comic books. But on the television show for season 3 of Titans, he's going to be a black kid. And I imagine, since they did this in the comics, if he stays for season 4, they'll probably make the black kid gay as well. So once again, we'll have a black character on television that's gay, when a black character that's actually black and straight, we can't buy that. It's annoying. It not only is it annoying, but from a business perspective, for Warner Brothers, it doesn't make any sense because it doesn't have any consistency. What Warner Brothers keeps trying to do is create these patchwork stories in the movies and on HBO Max, rather than weaving them together like Marvel did. And look, while Marvel is great, or at least they were great the first 10 years, we'll see what happens going forward because they're starting to go a little woke as well. But what they did saw a lot of people who are casual observers of the movies, who are what some people like Eric July of Young Ripper likes to call normies. They think that was genius, interweaving all of the storylines and movies together. That's not genius. That's comic books. That's what comic books have been doing for decades. That's what crossovers are about. Even when there isn't a crossover, you could read a Superman comic book and there would be a reference to something that's going on in one of the Batman titles. That is something comic books have always done. But Warner Brothers doesn't want to do that. So there's no consistency with anything that they're doing. And look, when you have no consistency, then what you end up with is a fractured audience. Fractured audiences lose you money. I have no interest in seeing a black Tim Drake on Titans, so I won't be subscribing to HBO Max. That's money they don't get. I'm not the only person. I certainly have no interest in seeing a character that I liked turned into something that they're not, so I wouldn't be buying that comic book. Other people are going to follow. That's more money out of DC and Warner Brothers' pockets. This is why this matters. This isn't just a cultural annoyance. This is a matter, honestly, of economics as well, in business. That old adage, go woke, get woke, go broke. Okay? That simply means the more you focus on woke politics or social justice themes, you ultimately hurt your brand. Nearly every company in the industry has gone that direction, has lost money. Doesn't matter what particular business it is. As soon as they start preaching a political message, it turns people off. Particularly when they go towards something to escape. Look, people go to the movies to escape. They watch TV to escape. They read comic books, play video games, or read novels to escape. They watch sports to escape. You can't escape when you turn on comic books or a movie, television show, and some political item of the moment is being shoved down your throat. You can't escape when you go to watch a, sports event and they're talking about Trump or Black Lives Matter. You don't want to hear any of that. You're trying to get away from that. Okay? In entertainment, of course, this is rampant. Why? I don't know. I'm not sure if it's because Hollywood is full of gay people that want to push a normalization of something. I'm not sure if it's because all of the people who are creative but maybe more concerned about comics or a character or story than other people are no longer in this industry. I don't know. I just know that it's rampant and it expands even beyond Robin. As I mentioned earlier, Batgirl will be black in the upcoming HBO series or movie. The geniuses at Warner Brothers actually think it's a good idea to make Clark Kent black and have it written by Ta-Nehisi Coates, a guy that never met a white person he didn't hate. Even new properties, like they were going to redo The New Warriors. If you follow all of this type of content, then you know as soon as the trailer for that came out, fans crushed it. Because not only were the new characters stupid, but they had stupid powers. Like they had one named Snowflake. Really? And no. I mean, like, I guess if you wanted to name somebody, a character that, and they had ice powers, that would have made sense. But of course, that's not what the character was. Another example that's recent is this graphic novel that I'm not even sure if it's out yet. I'm assuming it is. I Am Not Starfire. Another new property coming out again in graphic novel form about Starfire's daughter. When the trailer was released, it got destroyed by hardcore comic fans. Why? Well, I mean, just look at her. I mean, look at this. I mean, come on. This was clearly an attempt at making her fat and ugly because the writer wanted to write some sort of commentary about looks, particularly the looks of Starfire, which has been always highly sexualized. Further, the artwork here is awful. I mean, it's just bad. And the story is more like a literary novel about teen angst than a comic book. No one wants to read that in a comic book. Yeah, Raven of Titans of Stardom was certainly angsty because she was supposed to be one of the first gothic type characters because of her demon father, but primarily it was all about fighting evil, beating up bad guys, having adventures as a superhero. And that's why people like the character and the Teen Titans comic book overall. Look, you will find a few normies that likes this type of stuff. But understand something. Normies go to movies they look at a television show, they're not buying comic books on a weekly basis. Only true comic book geek fans are buying. So normies or are a, say they are a base of customers that's this wide, but they don't buy comic books. So the people who are your audience is this big. And the number of hardcore comic book fans that wants this stuff is even smaller. But here's the biggest problem. Even the people who are hardcore comic book fans who do not have a problem with this type of change, they were never asking for it. DC Comics are not getting emails from social justice minded comic book fans asking them to turn Robin into a gay character. They were not getting emails asking them to make Batgirl black or Jim Gordon black. Nobody has ever, outside the halls of Warner Brothers, asked for Superman to be black. In fact, everybody outside the halls of Warner Brothers are telling Warner Brothers to not do that. We didn't ask for this. And when you give us something that we don't like and didn't ask for, we don't buy it. Bottom line, we don't buy it. Now, how bad will this hurt DC Comics? Well, listen, Robin, for the most part, has always been a part of the Batman team. He's had his own series a little bit, Robin, Red Robin, different iterations, but they've always only done somewhat good, but not long enough to, be like a Captain America or a Batman or Superman or Wonder Woman. Not those type of sales. But whatever sales they have now, they're going to go down because we don't want to see this. This is not something that the comic book industry should even be doing. They're already losing money because creative interest, customer interest in the comic book industry is at the lowest level that it's been in years. Now, it's always had ups and downs. I wouldn't signal the end of the industry as we know it completely just yet. There have been other times in the 60s when the government was coming after them, late 70s, moving into the beginning of the 80s where people weren't really into it, 90s when DC and Warner and Marvel were having financial problems that were exacerbated by the creation of Image Comics, which took off and took a lot of their primary popular creators. We've seen downs in the industry before, but that's always been because of wider interests narrowing. Now we have wider interests narrowing and a narrowing of your core audience because these companies keep pissing off their fans. You look at this Magna comic that's called Demon Slayer. Demon Slayer recently outsold all of the comics at DC and Marvel combined. Now, a lot of people love Magna. I think I'm saying that correctly. The Japanese styled comics in animation. I've never gotten it. I've never liked the art style. I don't like the watercolors. It's always been puzzling to me that these are supposed to be Japanese characters, but the characters always look like they're white. I've never understood that. It always seemed like a strange thing to do ethnically, but whatever the case, they sell. They're a niche, but they're a niche that's doing well, and right now they're beginning to do better than American comic books. Now, why is that? I would submit to you it's because these stories in these books are about the characters and adventure and cool superpowers. It's a great escape. That's not what's happening in the comic books industry now. Every time we turn around, we see a politicization of normal comic books and the graphic comics. We see writers on Twitter dismissing and insulting their core fans and then expecting them to go out and spend $3 and $4 per book, per title, on the drivel that they're putting out to us. That's not happening. You throw COVID on top of that, sales of comic books are way down. The industry keeps shooting itself in the foot. Some people like to say this isn't show time, it's show business. The business of any company is to make their core audience, their core customers, happy first, and then try to expand out on that customer base. But if you pay attention to the people who are not buying your product at the detriment to the people who are buying it, and then insult the people who are buying it, doesn't matter if you expand out into the wider audience. You lose your core. You lose your foundation. And anything built on a foundation that's poor or weak crumbles.